Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on an incredible journey, one that bridges some genuinely brilliant computer science, a catastrophic multi-billion-dollar hack, and the surprisingly grounded reality of internet millionaires. We're going to deconstruct the foundational documents of crypto, the biggest disaster in its history, and the real human beings who navigated all that chaos. 850,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the staggering amount of Bitcoin that literally vanished into thin air during the infamous 2014 MGOX hack. To put that into perspective, at today's market prices, we are talking about a loss worth over $22 billion. It remains the largest hack in crypto history. But, to really grasp the sheer magnitude of a loss like that, we have to ask ourselves, how exactly was all this digital wealth created in the first place? Before we can unpack the disaster, we really need to understand the revolutionary tech that made decentralized digital cash a reality. Which brings us to Section 1, the blueprint for digital cash. To understand the chaos, we have to rewind back to 2008. That's when an anonymous figure, Satoshi Nakamoto, solved a seemingly impossible technical hurdle: how to send digital money directly between two people without needing a bank to step in and prevent double spending. Satoshi solved this massive problem with a decentralized system using what's called proof of work. Basically, think of it as a one CPU, one vote system. Network participants, we call them nodes, expend their computing power to solve really complex math puzzles. This effectively locks transactions into an ongoing, unbroken chain. The longest chain of verified transactions basically represents the most effort, so it becomes the universally accepted truth. If someone wanted to change a past transaction, they'd literally have to redo the math for that block and every single block after it. It's computationally totally impractical. And this caused a massive, really fascinating shift in how we think about privacy. In the traditional banking model, privacy is all about limiting access. Only you, the person you're paying, and the bank know what happened, right? But Bitcoin's new model totally flips this on its head. To make trustless money actually work, all transactions have to be publicly announced to the whole network. So how do they keep it private? Well, they break the flow of information in another spot, keeping the public cryptographic keys completely anonymous. So everyone can see the transaction happening, but nobody knows the actual human identities behind those keys. All right, moving into Section 2, programmable money and contracts. Because Bitcoin was really just the tip of the iceberg. The next major leap forward happened in 2014, thanks to developer Vitalik Buterin. To explain his grand vision, the Ethereum white paper actually breaks down Bitcoin using a pretty standard banking analogy. It says, think of Bitcoin as a state transition system. You've got an initial state, which is basically a balance sheet of who owns what. Then a transaction requests to move money from person A to person B. If person A actually has the funds, the system updates to a brand new resulting state. It's just like a traditional bank, except it's running entirely on decentralized math. So Ethereum took that exact state transition system and bolted on a fully fledged built-in programming language. That meant it could run basically any calculation or set of instructions you threw at it. This sparked the creation of smart contracts. These are systems that automatically move digital assets around based on totally arbitrary preset rules. Suddenly, the blockchain wasn't just a simple ledger for moving money. It could run complex financial derivatives, decentralized file storage, or even entirely decentralized autonomous organizations. And all of that just by writing up the logic in a few lines of code. The math behind all of this was undeniably brilliant. But, as we so often see, the fatal flaw isn't usually in the code, is it? It's in the humans. In just this incredible, painful stroke of irony, people took this revolutionary, trustless, decentralized money and immediately turned around and handed all their keys over to a single, highly vulnerable middleman. Which brings us to Section 3, the Mt. Gox catastrophe. It's almost absurd to think about now, but Mt. Gox was originally created way back in 2006 for one simple reason: to trade Magic the Gathering online playing cards. By 2010, it had morphed into a Bitcoin exchange. Under the leadership of Mark Harpelus, this thing grew so fast that, at its peak, it was handling over 70% of all global Bitcoin transactions. But behind the scenes, the platform was an absolute mess of security issues. In 2011, a hack cost them 25,000 Bitcoin. Then came the fatal blow. In February 2014, they abruptly suspended withdrawals and dropped a bombshell. 850,000 Bitcoin had just disappeared. They were forced straight into bankruptcy. Fast forward a full decade, and finally, in 2024, around $9 billion in BTC repayments are just now starting to make their way back to those original creditors. The legacy of Mt. Gox is a harsh, multi-billion-dollar wake-up call.
The whole disaster basically highlighted the exact vulnerabilities that Satoshi Nakamoto was trying to solve in the very beginning. This catastrophic failure forced the entire cryptocurrency industry to pivot hard, and it massively fueled the rise of decentralized finance and self-custody wallets. Users learned a really brutal lesson. If you don't hold your own keys, you absolutely do not hold your own coins.
Section 4. The reality of crypto wealth. Let's look past the massive hacks and the complex tech for a minute and focus on the actual humans who held on and hit the jackpot. In a deeply insightful Reddit thread asking users what life-changing money actually looks like, the answers were honestly surprisingly grounded. User Savage Dragon, who retired off crypto in 2021, pointed out that the real prize wasn't going out and buying a fleet of luxury cars. It was simply buying back their own time. True financial safety means you can wake up every day and dictate exactly how you're going to spend your time, totally free from the grind of bending over backwards just for a paycheck.
For other people, like user JackBagel20, this sudden wealth offered a profound, literal escape from absolute poverty. His story proves that, while money doesn't automatically inject pure joy into your brain, erasing that crushing everyday stress of basic survival, that creates an incredible peace of mind. It buys you a reliable car, a safe neighborhood, and a quiet, debt-free existence.
But we have to talk about the massive psychological trap hidden in all of this. User JPS_ brilliantly points out the extreme danger of sudden wealth. It is incredibly easy to mistake pure, extraordinary luck for absolute financial genius. When you hit it big in crypto, it is so tempting to look in the mirror and think you're the smartest person in the room. And that arrogance, it leads people to keep investing in wild, highly risky assets until they lose every penny in a brutal rags to riches to rags cycle. The absolute smartest thing you can do when you win the game is simply to stop playing. So what are the crucial takeaways from these everyday internet millionaires? First, pay off your debts. Use the money to buy back your time. Avoid that flashy Lambo myth in favor of a quiet, low-profile life. And most importantly, check your ego at the door. You have to recognize the massive role that pure luck played in your success and dial your risk tolerance way down to protect what you've actually gained. Wow, okay. We have covered a massive amount of ground in this explainer today. We've seen the flawless, trustless math of the Bitcoin and Ethereum blockchains. We've examined the absolute devastating human error behind the Mt. Gox collapse. And we've looked at the quiet, grounded reality of sudden crypto wealth, which really leaves us with one fascinating final question to ponder. Ultimately, cryptocurrency isn't just a story about brilliant cryptography or getting rich quick. It's an ongoing, incredibly high-stakes experiment in human agency. It shows us that true decentralization isn't just about escaping traditional banks. It's about using technology to claim ultimate ownership over our assets, our choices, and our time. But the real question is, if you were handed that kind of absolute freedom tomorrow, would you actually know what to do with it?